Okay, hello. Thanks for joining us. It has been several months since we've done this. But we have our favorite pastor, Siri Strommen, here with us. Welcome, Siri.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Thank you. She is from Atonement Lutheran Church in Bloomington, Minnesota.
Hmm.
Oh, I remembered it
You
after
got it.
there's so much going on, and I actually just am hearing that 5 o'clock today, no more Medicaid. If you have prescriptions that need to be filled, get them filled by 5 o'clock today because all that money has now been stopped for, I think they said 90 days or something. I don't know. But there's a lot going on. And
Yeah.
Siri, I'm so glad you're here because this is my dilemma. Um, and we all saw the Reverend at the Mass for a DT last week, and she's getting all kinds of hate because she basically preached the words of Jesus.
Yep.
Siri is a pastor, um, but not she. She was she Episcopalian or no?
She's Episcopalian and I'm Lutheran, but honestly, that's very close
Are
in
they?
some ways. Yeah.
Okay,
Hmm.
so they could go back and forth. Here's what I really want to talk about because I find this it's really upsetting, and I'm trying to find a neutral ground. But a lot of the spiritual groups that are all women that I'm involved in feel this is all beneath them. And I
Hmm.
even see it in some of the big ones I follow. Oh, that's such low energy, just love and light, love and light. And it's really, really getting to me. I was actually in Mexico on a divine feminine retreat and had incredible things happen. I made a couple videos about what happened on the day that I found the results. But they were like, "Oh, is there? They're like, oh, is it over? Oh, who won?" Like so uninvolved, and a lot of them voted for him because he's a
Hmm.
change maker. And this is where my anger really comes. I didn't know I was going to go here, but I'm going here. Um, a lot of these really big people who host spiritual talk shows, whether they're spiritual or not, and I've seen them growing over the past year. One of the big ones now has almost 1 million followers in the past year. There was a woman who she only had like 25,000 followers. She's from another country, but very nice show. And I saw her numbers going up, and I clicked on the show, and she was like, "How I got to over $100,000 was she talked to another person." All the headlines are fear. Prepare for what's going to happen in 2025. You won't survive. You have to be prepared. 2025, darkness, stock up on food. And here's the thing that really gets me mad is what I'm what is becoming clearer and clearer to me in my journey is we are sovereign. Our thoughts, our words, our actions are creating our reality. And when we connect with each other, it's powerful. As you know, I walked away from traditional religion many years ago. But many of the things that they do have truth in them. And wherever two or more are gathered in my name, that has truth, even though they use it in a religious context. The core of it is true. Power in
Hmm.
numbers. When we unite our thought process together, we manifest bigger, better, faster, stronger. And the fact that in the past year, that's almost exclusively what I saw. Prepare, prepare. I did not see one person. Actually, I remember Bashar said she wins contact with um, whatever you call
Hmm.
supernatural, aliens, whatever. He wins, not good. End of
Yeah.
democracy, World War III. The only person I saw saying anything positive. Um, what really bothers me is I didn't see anybody say, we all know that we're at a tipping point, right? So we
Hmm.
can't live like this anymore. We're pushed further and further down. I understand the MAGAs. They're in a lot of pain. They're just backing the wrong horse. We're all in pain. We've
Yep.
all been used and abused by this government, but they're not all the same. Every single social construct we have that helps us came from Democrats. The last
Hmm.
time the Republicans did it was when Lincoln was in office and freed the slaves. Since then, literally, every, workman's comp, Social Security, Medicaid, Medicare, the AC, what is it? Obamacare, they call it, but it's Affordable Care Act, ACA. That's all Democrats. So, and what the Republicans have been doing is cozying up to extremist Christians and corporations. I'm not saying this is ideal at all, but I am saying you can't, that they kept saying, what about, and they're the same. They're not. They were never the same. Certainly not in the last 10 years of elections. And the issue that I have is, imagine if these spiritual people, if they're really channeling these spirit beings, and I've actually heard other people say, there's bad beings too, that are of the highest. Just because we're contacting something higher or think we're contacting something higher doesn't mean it's the purest love and the purest truth.
Yeah.
But I didn't see one of them say it's time for change. Humanity has to shift. We have to pay attention to the earth. We have to pay attention to our own thoughts, words, and actions. And we can do it through love and unity.
Mm-hmm.
We can do it by reaching out our hands to each other. Love is more powerful than anything. And I did not see one say we can do it in a positive way. They fed, even the spiritual community fell into the trance of fear. And I really do believe that's where humanity is at. We have all been programmed with fear from such an early age that we have normalized it. When people, when people are happy and they say, oh, just waiting for the other shoe to drop, things are going too good, because we have been trained to see fear and worry as our normal state. It's not natural. Babies aren't fearful. We have two natural fears: loud noises and falling. That's it. Everything else is programmed into us. And some of the spiritual groups also that I'm connected with, they see me as defective because I am using my voice. I do feel you need to speak truth to power. I don't see the point of living a spiritual life and ignoring people who are suffering because it's low energy, and just focus on what you want. That feels like burying my head in the sand to me. And I can't imagine being a member of the LGBT alphabet community, of being a Black person, of being an immigrant, and having a spiritual community go, this is all illusion. It's not really happening to you. Just focus on light and love. And I'm being a bit of a smartass, but I honestly don't care, because I find it infuriating. They're clueless what's going on. They picked up that this guy was a change maker, and so they just voted blindly. They didn't speak to people who align with their values and pay attention to what's happening in the political world. They listened to all these people who said, we need to bring about the collapse so we can rebuild. And they chose to do it through a means that is already causing so much suffering and pain. And I'm infuriated that even people who think they're on the side of goodness and truth are peddling fear and so clueless. When I was on that retreat, I was talking to a woman. I've been on several retreats. I was talking to a woman about this, and she was saying, well, this is how it has to be, because, mind you, all white women who are fairly well taken care of, some of them by the men in their lives, they're not even working. So there's a lot of privilege there. But this woman, she's been married a long time, and been being taken care of very, very well. But I was like, but a lot of people, this is going to cause a lot of suffering for a lot of people. But they signed up for that. It's all going to be okay in the end, because they signed up to be those people that'll suffer. That is the most effed up thing I can think of. Like, oh, it's okay that we're going to sign off on these people suffering because they signed up for this. Honestly, I feel like the top of my head is going to blow off. And then I'm judged as someone, I keep getting messages from these different groups like, hang in there, you're doing so good, you'll get there. Like I'm defective because I'm passionate and want to be involved in this. And I think the things that happened to me, I'm going to stop talking in 1 second and let you take the floor. But the things that happened to me there, the divine feminine that revealed herself to me. Yeah, she's not sitting quietly and crossing herself timidly and only speaking when she's spoken to. She is like unleashed. That's literally the word I heard after this incident that happened the day after that election happened. And anyway, and that's what I think is happening. I think they don't even realize that they're being good girls, and they're actually still kind of enmeshed in the patriarchy and the message of fear, and just everything should be light and love, and just focus on that. And I honestly, I don't know what to do with it. I'm getting all these messages from inside, and this unleashing, but then all the messages outside in these spiritual groups, especially female led, are all, oh, you'll get to a peaceful place someday. And they're just so oblivious, they don't even pay attention. I literally saw, this administration is full of people like the person who was put in charge. I won't say elected, but who was put in charge, who assaults women openly. I mean, so many of these people do. I was just reading an article a little while ago that RFK's Caroline Kennedy wrote, JFK's daughter, about this man, what a predator he is, even people in the family, babysitters, whatever. And he vaccinates his children, but tells people not to get it's all such a sham. But the other day I saw a woman with a huge following on Facebook say, oh, politics aside, they're taking the fluoride out of the water. Like, I'm sure the people hiding in basements and attics and who have lost their jobs and can't go out on the street because of the way they look are very happy to hear that there won't be fluoride in the water anymore. I mean, the disconnect and the cluelessness, and I'm probably being a bit of a bitch, but it's really getting to me today. It's really getting to me today, especially now, all these people not going to have their Medicaid, but I bet if they focus on love and light and just ignore politics, they'll be fine. And that's my last smartest thing for right now. I'm gonna
Yeah.
your thoughts.
This is a real tough time. And I think it is fascinating to watch how people are organizing their thoughts and where they're landing. And we all are tempted with some kind of spiritual bypassing, which is to cling on to certain platitudes that sound really good to avoid the suffering that might be in front of us, whether it's our own suffering or other people's suffering. And that happens in every thought process. So it's happens in sort of the spiritual community, it happens in the Christian community, it happens all over, where we find something that probably does have actually deep truth to it, but we use it as like a helium balloon to try to float above the earth when below there's suffering, there's people crying out for pain. Parts of us might be down there crying out for suffering and pain, but we don't want to look at it because it's too painful. I understand the references to like karmic living, but just an example of that, if my youngest, who's trans, chose to be trans and chose to be trans in a time like this, they also chose to be my kid. So part of my karma was maybe to be their mother and to learn how to protect them and how to have empathy for the queer community. And as boring as my gender and sexuality is, I am so boring. I am learning to not only have empathy for, but to feel protective of this community to the point where I'm asking myself, is my faith courageous and powerful enough that I would stand in front of a bullet for them? And all of the people of faith that I've admired, from Jesus to saints and mystics, women and men of not just of the Christian faith, of many different faiths. I just read a beautiful book about called Daughters of the Goddess, of all of these relatively recent women Indian saints, some of whom are still alive today, powerful, powerful women. None of them advocated for allowing the things to just keep going as they were. None of them advocated for keeping their hands off of issues, or every single one of them did something to try to alleviate suffering in some way. They fed people, they built housing, they built hospitals, they built clinics, because ultimately the wisest of the wisest people see that we're all coming from the same consciousness. We're all one. And what I do to you is done to me at the end of the day. And there's such a callousness and a simpleness to saying, look, you chose this life. You chose to be born in the body that you chose to be born in. Therefore, if it's a hard life, that's on you. Or you're going to learn some pretty big lessons being born in the body in the time you had. And it's up to me to learn some huge lessons about empathy and privilege and alleviating suffering and making myself uncomfortable for the sake of my neighbor when it'd be so much easier for me to sit back. I am a very privileged woman. Literally, the only thing, I did this experiment with my congregation a year ago. There were like 20 of us in the room, and we all stood up. And then when we were reading on a list of like, did this happen to you? You had to sit down. So it would be like, were you ever homeless? Okay, you had to sit down. Do you have a physical chronic pain or chronic disability? Sit down. Do you have a mental health diagnosis? Sit down. All of these sort of things. At the end, I was standing with another white man, and the only reason I was standing with him was because I was a pastor and I have a position that's traditionally seen as very privileged and has a lot of power. The two of us were the most privileged people in that room. Now extend that out to the whole community, and we'd still probably be in the top 10%, right? Expand that out. I can sit back and I can preach a toothless gospel that means nothing at the end of the day, that just makes people feel kind of good and means nothing, and no one's going to really come for me or do anything. That is not how I see my faith and my faith journey. So one of the images that keeps coming to me is, to rise up, you have to go down. And I want to just explain what that means is, like, if you want to become your highest and best self, first you have to go down into the mud and the gunk, and you have to wade through the fear and the shame and the guilt and all the monsters and the shadows inside of you and befriend them with love. You have to look them in the face. You have to listen to them. You have to greet them with non-judgment, integrate them, and then in the process, you can rise up. But if we try to rise up without looking at any of the gunk within ourselves or out in the world, it's fake. It's the spiritual bypassing. It's trying to use the helium balloon and not looking, not looking, not looking. And we all do that at some time. Obviously, I think what some people are talking about is what we don't want to do is get sucked into the low vibration of anxiety, shame, and fear, where we're then catatonic, and then we become prey, where we're caught in the same, sort of nasty energy as our attackers. But there's another way. And we've seen this. It's been done. This is not the first time in human history where shit's gone down and people have had to be courageous and band together and stand to face oppression. We can learn from the people who did this really well, who organized, who met together. Just look at the civil rights movement and look at pictures of the Black people who were sitting at the bar, at the cafes.
Yeah, the lunch counter.
The white people behind them and their faces.
Yeah.
And then look at the Black people's faces. They'd gone through serious preparation. in their bodies and in their minds and in their souls to know how to weather and not react to that level of vitriol. They knew how to go into the mire for a good reason to benefit themselves and others. And they knew how to do that well, and they'd had the preparation. So there are people that know how to do this. They know how to band us together. They know how to prepare us so that we don't sink to their level, so to speak, but we do respond in a way that is not just rolling over and complying. Because that's the last thing I'll say is that's unfortunately what's happening, is that when we just put our hands off and go, well, I'm just focusing on love and light and nothing else, then in the background, we're allowing and giving power to them to continue. They'll just roll right over us and go to their victims.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to be a cog in the wheel that makes it hard for them to do their work, even if it means I get hurt in the process. And I want to do the work on myself, that I do that with full integrity, with full courage, with full compassion, and that my head and my heart's in the right place.
That was so wise and so beautiful. I can understand why you're a pastor. That honestly, Siri, that made so much sense. And the feeling I always come back to, because I've been struggling myself, because I've always tried, I was never the quiet, sweet little girl that I went to 12 years of parochial schools. I've mentioned before this, the quiet, sweet little girl that the nuns liked. The nuns didn't like me very much. I remember when we had our grammar school reunion, I didn't remember this at all, but a classmate said, "Oh, I remember you standing toe to toe with some nun and telling her off." I'm like, I don't remember that, because I don't remember being that brave. I remember having a lot of feelings, but also being afraid to express them. But I'm glad whenever that was, I did that once. But I have struggled, because we know approval, especially in religious circles, for women comes from obedience, service, being sweet, nice little girls. Even when we're adults, they like nice little girls who do what they're told, don't speak up too much. So I understand that conditioning. When you're loud, or I guess my feeling is, what's the point? What's the point of being a spiritual person and spending time in meditation and study and doing all these things, if when your fellow human beings are being attacked or hurting or struggling, you're just sitting at home praying? What's the point? And so I struggled a lot, because on the way home from this retreat I was at in November, myself and a few of the women kind of had an exchange that was really painful and really uncomfortable, because they did not accept what had happened to me and what I was saying about what I thought spiritual action looked like, or whatever, and they were having none of it. So that was really hard, but it fed my doubt, like, well, maybe I'm wrong, maybe what happened didn't happen, maybe I'm hearing the wrong thing. And what came to me was Jesus, Malala Yousafzai, Martin Luther King, Gandhi. These are all deeply spiritual people who were out in the world making a difference. They didn't sit at home
Absolutely.
focusing on love and light and tell people they weren't really feeling what they were feeling. It was all just an illusion. Like, that doesn't help anybody. And this is
Right.
a thing that I had amazing things happen to me, but I believe there's people who, I was told, we are bridge walkers. And it's like, there's the everyone who's in the light and love and awake to that reality over here. And there's the people over here, and there's a bridge in between, right? There's people holding the light, holding the space. There's people in pain and struggling over here who are lost. And there's people that need to be able to walk across that bridge and shift into someone that can relate to them, but also still has the heart that is filled with the love and light, but is physically willing to cross that bridge and do that work. And that's fine with me. My issue is the people standing, some of the people in the love and light are judging the bridge walkers. Like, they're not supposed to be walking over there. So maybe they're not technically in the love and light. Maybe that was a miss. But that's how I feel. I feel like I'm getting very judged by people who are living in love and light, and because I'm loud and being a activist, I'm not spiritual, and I'm not quite there yet. I just need to, that's the stuff that drives me effing crazy. It's
Yeah,
so judgmental. And honestly,
condescending.
I said it a million times, spiritual superiority is a powerful drug.
Yes.
You can feel spiritual, like you're God's favorite and you're the one who's really on the God track. The other people are a little bit lost, and it's your job to get them on your track.
Yep.
I could barf on my own feet.
It's such a potent, um, it's such a potent hook. When you're doing so much work and you feel like you've made so much progress, and then the one thing that gets you without you getting it is that condescension and that thing that I've got it figured out. And what I've learned is if you have any judgment at all towards your fellow people, you're back to square one and you're trapped. I've had so much journaling come out and so many lessons in my journaling that I was focusing on kind of the virus of judgment and condemnation that has infected humanity. And it's so pervasive that we don't even see it. We only see it maybe when it's really, really, really bad or someone's really being awful in a certain way. And we're like, what's their problem? We need to be more loving. But in reality, like I notice throughout the day how many times I'm judgmental of others and and how I feel superior and stuff like that. And I'm working on it. I'm owning that. I'm the first step is to recognize it. I'm trying not to judge myself for it because that's the irony
Mhm.
is you find out something about yourself that all of a sudden you'd never seen before and now you beat yourself up for it. Judgment just doesn't work. It doesn't work. Um, we are all processing this in a way. And I think for us to be honest about where are we and why is it that we need to be where we are. And I feel a little judgmental towards people who might be sitting back and going, oh, feeling superior. And I'm judgmental towards the activists who are only acting out of anger and hatred and have built an us and them. Of course, I feel like I'm doing it well, right? But that's for me to notice and for me to process. And yeah, like the higher you go in learning about yourself, I think the more compassion you have for where other people are. And I would hope that like in a conversation we could have, Mary, it would be like, you know, what's in your heart? What is your heart needing to do right now? And what I'm hearing is your heart really wants to help people. Like you don't want people to suffer. And that's so beautiful. And I can share where my heart is and we can support each other on our heart's journey. Um, yeah, it's tough.
Yeah, and by the way, I do see the irony because I can be very judgmental. I'm like, these people are so judgmental and angry. I'm like exactly the same. So I'm really trying to do my best. And I do want to say, we are boycotting Valentine's Day. I'm got people that are white women. This is a thing we can do, a gesture of good faith, because I know Black women are, they pretty much had it with always carrying half the load and then getting dumped by the roadside. So for the suffragist movement, women's lib movement, it happened. And I came across a video a few days ago, and I put out a video on this on my platform, but and this Black woman was in sheer terror, and she said, white women, please, you have got to help us. There's nothing they can do. They're losing their jobs. I mean, all the protections have been removed pretty much. It's what's happening to them. And so I thought, well, what can we do? What can we do? In 1975, the women of Iceland went on strike. They've done it 7 times since. Iceland is now recognized as the #1 country for equality. They're at like 91%, I think, of achieving great equality. And they have found these women go on strike. They do nothing. They don't buy anything. They don't go to work. They don't cook. They don't clean. Nothing. Whether they're working at a job outside the home or in the home, that's the first time they did it was 1975, and it made a huge difference. And they've done it every time since. So I was trying to think, what can we do? That kind of a strike takes organization and preparation, right? but Valentine's Day is like 2 or 3 weeks away. And so what we're doing is on Valentine's Day, no purchases, no going out to dinner. This year, don't buy any heart-shaped candy or flowers unless it's from a local, minority-owned, LGBTQ owned, a woman, African-American woman, whatever, somebody that you know supports the same things that you do. But stay local, do it local, no cards. I said you could write a love note, 3 things I love about you, 5 things you did this year that make me so grateful for you. That would mean more than the candy and flowers, which are going to die and get thrown out and eaten. And then every woman's got to go work out because she just ate a whole box of chocolates or whatever. That stuff is, it's like some of the women that I spoke with push back just a, they're like, oh, my grandkids, get the kids. Nobody wants to make kids suffer, but just buy their little Valentines for the classmates and stuff before. And if you have to get candy, get regular candy. Just don't get the heart shape and don't buy anything on Valentine's Day. It's just a very tiny shot across the bow, but it's better than just sitting every day, hearing and seeing all this pain people are in, feeling your own pain and just crying. And this is what I found since I was a little girl, the pain and suffering in the world, it was too much for me. I had way too much empathy. I've always been able to feel people's feelings, and it's very overwhelming, especially as a child. You don't really know what to do with that. What I discovered as I got older and became an adult is if I could just do one positive thing, one helpful thing, it kind of breathes life back into you and makes you feel less afraid, less trapped and controlled. And that's why doing this thing for Valentine's Day, just not this year. And the thing to me is, when you were in college, did you have to read that short story, The Ones Who Walk Away from Amalas? Did you ever read that?
No.
It's a fantastic, you can find it online. It's only 3 or 4 pages, and it's basically a story about this town that's incredibly happy. I'm going to just edit it really short. Everything's blissful, everything's wonderful, because the sacrifice in the basement of this courthouse or whatever is a child that isn't fed, chained to the wall. They just throw some water and bread in there. And between the grades of like 4 and 7, every child has to go and look and see this. And of course, the children immediately have pity and they want to free the child. But then they're told, then everybody else is you're going to upset the apple cart. Everybody else is going to suffer. You're going to mess with the whole order of things. So the child stays, and it's about the ones who walk away from MLS when they want no part of that anymore. And that's how I feel going out to dinner on Valentine's Day, while there's that story just came to my mind when I thought of getting flowers and candy and we've got to stop going about normal life because it's normalizing what's happening. Now, I'm not saying panic, be afraid, opposite, because we cannot make good decisions when we're full of panic and fear, which is why it's important to slow down, breathe, do some meditation, connect. But also, I think it's very important to, what happened to me in Mexico, so many things happened, but the biggest thing was I need to free myself from all the programming of what I've been taught, especially as a female, what the divine feminine is, what my role is, all those things, everything that kept happening. And I would say, well, but what, and it would say, says who?
Yes.
Everything we've been taught is not true. It's
a story.
The opposite of it. What happened to me the day after the election, I knew something was coming up, and I was among women that were so completely detached from all of it. I thought we'd come together and send love to the United States or something. That didn't happen. Whatever. I wasn't in charge of it, but something was coming up. So I ran up to my room and I was like, I don't know what's happened. The maid was in there. I went out on the balcony and 2 of the women had followed me, which surprised me because I didn't think I was expressing anything. But one of them was a really good friend of mine, Wendy, who you know. And anyway, they were like, Mary, what's wrong? And I said, I don't know. And as I said that, I just crumbled. I fell on the cement bench on the balcony, and it was like all the strength went out of me, and I was sobbing to tears. of 1,000,000 years from 1,000,000 women. It's like all the abuse and degradation that's been put upon us that we've suffered for millennia. And honestly, I just laid there like that for a while. I don't know how long, just sobbing, sobbing, sobbing. And then all of a sudden, like something rose up within me and I flipped over and just screamed like the sounds that were coming out of me. And I could feel her and she was like, unleashed, unleashed. And the thing is, we're afraid of that power. We were
Yeah.
burned at the stake. We were drowned. We have a lot of cellular memory of that Black Madonna, right? Of the Magdalene and her power. It's all been so watered down. I know in the Catholic Church, Mary Magdalene was a whore, which they changed, I don't know, 20 years ago or something. But Jesus's mother, can you imagine being the woman that raised that child? And she's relegated, I don't know, she has a few words here and there, and she's white, of course, as all Middle Eastern Jews are. And, in her white little thing and her blue little thing and all that. And this is, I think, a big struggle for women because of the images society tells us what they want from women, which we know, mouth shut, legs open, but also from religion. Be pious, be holy, be a good woman. And what exploded out of me in Mexico was like, we're done with that.
Yeah.
We're done with that. And I do believe women are remembering their powers. There's connections online with Dreaming Women, 4 a.m. Club, all these people that woke up in the middle of the night. It's amazing. But we need each other because it's scary. And well-intentioned people are going to try and get us back in line, even though they think they're renegades and they're not on this side of traditional religion and all that. When they're telling us to be quiet and just focus on love and light, they don't realize they're right back in the programming of what the feminine face of God looks like.
Absolutely. And part of this, I've heard it called the Kali age in Hinduism, which is this, Kali is this
Oh, yeah.
feminine and it's just sort of chaos, but it's churning things up and it's to bring what's unconscious into the consciousness. But that's the point of it. It isn't just to sit back and go, oh, well, this is all supposed to happen, but to say, what is this bringing up in me? What am I supposed to look at? And I love that message you received of who says. So this is an opportunity for us to go through our own inner work and struggle to figure out who we really are and what our power is and what our place in this world truly is. In a few days, I'm going to be going to India for a spiritual retreat. And as I was preparing for the trip, this sounds silly, but I just had this fear that I have a huge phobia of snakes. And I was like, I'm going to be in the marketplace and there'll be like a cobra charmer, and it's going to, it's so jolting for me and incapacitating. So I did some work with it. And last fall, I had a really interesting kind of like trance experience where I was alone in my room and these two huge cobras were going back and forth in front of my bed like guardians.
Mm.
And I remember thinking, why are you here? You know, I don't like you. And they said, we're here to protect you. And I was like, protect me from what? You're literally the thing I'm the most
Mm.
afraid of. And they said, yes, but if you're not afraid of us, who are you afraid of? And there was so much more. They taught me so much that night. And I woke up in the morning and I journaled it all down. But it was a really powerful experience of, and I'd heard for years, oh, the thing you're afraid of is the thing you need the most, blah, blah, blah. But I sort of had this opportunity to say that there was something in the power of this snake that doesn't think by any story it's told of how to behave. It simply acts and reacts according to what it wants to be. It's hot, it goes in the shade. It's cold, it goes on a rock. It's hungry, it eats. It's tired, it rests. And how we've supplanted all our intuition, all our feelings. we've pushed that aside in favor of a narrative that has been imposed upon us and everybody that's mitigated what's okay and what's not okay. And so there was something powerful in this, and I'm still working with the idea of figuring out how to integrate it, of this cobra as friend, as this powerful energy that's here to just say, we do what we want. We do what we want. And that I have energies guarding me to step into the fullness of who I am to be, and they're there for it. Right. So it's an interesting, so just taking it back to that idea that yes, there's a huge temptation to just say, we'll just light some candles and we'll just pray for world peace and yes, do that. Please do that. But maybe pause and say, what's in front of me? What is part of my karmic duty? It's not to save the whole world. It's not to jump on every fire that's happening. Can't do that. Yes, that's overwhelming. Um, for me right now, what's happening in my little community is I have a small group of people, and we are dreaming up and putting together a safe place for LGBTQ kids, specifically youth, and then a support group for the parents. And to me, that feels really, really important. I can't save the whole world, but if in the city I live in, I can create a space where kids and their parents feel safe, get good education, collaborate together, form bonds. I feel like that's a really good step in the right direction.
That's awesome. And that's what I think. I mean, like I said, even with the Valentine's Day thing, money talks. They hear money makes
Yes.
80% of purchasing decisions in a household. We should all stop buying at big stores as much as we can anyway, especially the one that we order online, who's one of the people that are contributing to the oligarchy that we're becoming. But you said something so interesting, because as I've traveled this road of opening up to the divine feminine and kind of going where she leads me and shaking loose of things I've been taught that are, I'm finding more and more almost everything isn't true, is the snake was associated with the goddess. She was a symbol of the
Yes.
divine feminine, and Christianity turned the snake into the devil, remember?
Right.
And it's really interesting, the story of the Garden of Eden, that the snake told Eve to eat from the tree of wisdom, which is bad because then she destroyed humanity for everybody. I mean, think of the propaganda in that, and the controlling the narrative to make sure women stay where they're meant to stay. And I do think, and I get really passionate. That's why I like talking to Siri, because she knows exactly how to cool the waters and not offend people, because a lot of times I can offend people. And I agree 100%. I don't argue with people on, you know, the retreat where I met you several years ago in Mount Shasta, um, and the words I got after that vision of us in that camp of protection,
Yeah.
remember? And I was meant to go out and talk with the people that were coming after us. And I said to them, if you go through with this, the consequences of your choices are on your shoulders.
Yeah.
So no matter what happened, whatever choice, you know, the consequences are on your shoulders. And that's what I keep thinking. There's a lot of people I love that are lost in this cult, whatever it is. It's astounding to me. Like, honestly, my whole life I've been so good, especially when you're an empath, you can feel other people's feelings. I can put myself in other people's shoes. And I do understand, in a sense, it's a the fear of going inside and
Hmm.
pulling up what needs to be healed. Um,
Terrifying.
yeah, it's so big that they'll cling to the racism and sexism before they'll ever go in here. Because the bottom line is, as within, so without.
Yeah.
You cannot hate the way these people are hating people they've never met unless it exists within you. You wouldn't even be able to access that kind of, I saw something. probably why I was so worked up, about the Medicaid ending, and I'm trying to tell people that I know need it, like get your prescription filled before 5 o'clock, because this is shutting down. And so I was kind of maybe worked up about that, but oh, I can't remember what I was saying now. But I went off on some tangent, and so that, but I don't want to fight with anybody. I can be passionate, um, but I have no, oh, that's what it was. The video I'd seen of a woman that was calling certain people subhuman. She doesn't care what happens to them. She's so well programmed. And I've heard that over and over. And it is this book we've talked about. Oh, sorry, Frida. This book, we've talked about it before. And this is a really good book that whoever thought it might pertain to what's happening here, but it was in Rwanda, the Tutsis, and
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember what else, but they were
Yep.
neighbors. They got along fine. They might have had a few little differences, but then they were programmed and they were calling them cockroaches. And this is about a woman who hid in a bathroom. I can't remember for how many months, an 8 by 6 foot bathroom with 10 other women or something piled on top of each other, hidden behind a bureau in a pastor's house for months. And she could hear people. They knew she was somewhere. They checked the
Yeah.
house so many times and they kept, we're coming for you. And they used machetes. Imagine, guns are one thing. Now imagine machetes. And the streets just ran around because they had been so programmed. And we see it happening. And I don't say it because I don't want to feed fear, but I also don't want to bury our head in the sand. We need to stand up in love and unity. Take a page from the civil rights workers. What did they do? What did they do? You know? And I believe that's the core spirituality for me. And like I said, I have no problem if you think sitting at home and just meditating is your role. Wonderful. But don't judge people who take a different path, because, who knows where we are on our soul's evolution, on our soul's journey. We don't know. I always say, maybe I spent my last lifetimes being afraid to speak up.
Yeah.
Maybe I let myself get pushed around all the time, and that's why I don't want to say I have a big mouth, because that's what everyone says. You have such a big mouth, and it's not a very nice thing to say about myself. But maybe that's why I'm so outspoken and have such a hard time
Yeah.
holding my tongue when I see things that don't look right, because maybe I have lifetimes of that build up. And many of us women certainly do, because of our magic and our abilities and everything that we were able to do, that, like I said, we were drowned, burned at the stake for, not treated well. So I'm sure that's part of it. Like in ourselves, it's like, oh God, we did this before. But I do believe that that's what's emerging now, and we can do it differently, if we don't run scared.
Yeah, absolutely. We do have ways that we can do this well. So complying and being quiet and waiting it out uh, is sort of the one trap that we'll fall into. Um, Going into the, oh, this is our enemy and fight, that's the other trap we can go into. But the third way that I am working on is to realize that we're caught in this very, very unhealthy, dysfunctional story that's being orchestrated by some very powerful people that want us to fight and hate each other and tear each other to shreds and be afraid and everything like that. And I refuse that by cultivating my own inner strength, loving myself, but then also finding a way to love my neighbor in a way that makes a difference to them. So it's interesting. You can say, I love you, neighbor, but if they don't feel that love, it doesn't matter. So love your neighbor in a way they see as love. And um, when I say something in a sermon, for example, and then someone who's historically marginalized or has had a really painful experience in their life comes forward and says, that helped. I know that I was courageous and I'm on the right path. And I don't know I don't knock it out of the park all the time, but that's the people that I'm here for. That's why I have a platform, is not to make the comfortable comfortable, but to make the uncomfortable comfortable, to make the people who don't feel like they belong feel like they have a safe place. And if that puts me on, makes me uncomfortable and puts me at risk, that's okay because I'm choosing that. And I feel like that's part of my soul's journey is to find a way to courageously move through this time and make a difference in the way that I'm called to make a difference, regardless of what happens.
That makes that makes perfect sense to me. What's becoming really clear to me is these are the exact words that I got, and so much happened to me. We were in these underground caves with portals to like other worlds. That's
Mm.
a whole nother show. Um, what happened to me in these portals is it was like I keep saying it's like when you remember the VHS tapes and you put on fast forward and be like all this information was like, duh, and I was in ecstasy. I was crying. I was speaking in ancient languages, and I could just see the perfection of everything and everyone. And this happened. I had several amazing incidences there, and I've been writing about it still since I got home, for the last few months because there's so much. But one of the main things was pretty much flip everything on its head because everything that we're being taught to keep us compliant, controllable, quiet, separated, fighting with each other. Because they know if we ever realize what's going on and band together, there's 8 billion of us and the jig's up for you guys, right?
Yeah,
Um, and like I said, that certain things I would say, well, what about, but is it's supposed to be this? And they go, who says? Who says?
right.
And the other thing is, um, literally, I remember the line perfectly, is we cannot tell you how inconsequential what you eat, what you wear, or anything else is. There
Mm.
are no rules. They're all made up. There's universal laws, but there's even just a few of those. There are no rules. And I keep thinking, I mean, for someone who spent the first half of her life completely enmeshed in Catholicism, 12 years of Catholic school, church every day, teaching it. It's like rules, like you could fill volumes with all the rules and what you're supposed to think. And that's all to keep us controlled. But when that's so in your blood and bones and psyche, you got to keep asking and everything. I can tell you one thing in particular. Um, I had forgotten my shoes to go through the caves
Mm.
and, the swimming shoes. And so I had these amazing experiences. Like I said, one day maybe I'll say everything on here, but I'm still processing it. But anyway, so I was like in another world. And the next day we did it again. And the day after that, I couldn't walk. And I looked and I had these deep gashes, top of my foot, not a cut, but just like a sharp instrument had gone in top and bottom. And I couldn't even walk on my foot. And I was like, I don't get this. Like I've had this amazing experience in these caves. Why do I have now? I can't even walk on my foot. I got these cuts. And I was told you're injected with information. I was meant to
Mm.
forget those shoes, the stalagmites that went into these are some of the oldest things in existence. And when they went into my foot, and it's like I can feel since then, it's moving this way, like backwards, erasing. And so when they said that, when, I got that guidance, that information, I was getting information and clearing like my DNA with this. And I was like, oh, okay. And then I was like, wait a second, though. We received from our left side. This is the right side. And they said, who says?
Who
Always,
says?
who says? Who says? And that's kind of, I think, our whole journey is about unlearning. It's
Yeah.
not about even discovering, it's about remembering because it's all
Mm.
inside of us.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
anyway, okay, before we wrap up, Siri, any of your last thoughts, because you have such beautiful ones.
You just reminded me the very first video I ever did on my YouTube channel was called There's Nothing You Have to Believe. And I remember that now. There's nothing you have to believe or do or think in order to be loved as you are. Those are lies that have been told. So if there's nothing we have to think, believe, or do in order to be loved, then we get to choose what we think, believe, and do in a way that is serving us, that's serving the humanity, that's in line with, hopefully, that gives us peace, that gives us happiness, that gives us justice. And by us, I mean the collective us, the plants, the trees, the animals, the water, the earth, people of all kinds, because we're all part of this one shared universal consciousness. And so we're one tiny speck in all of that. But like you said, who says if everything we've been taught isn't true, then let's choose the truths that are going to build us up into a place of harmony and unity again. True harmony.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Now, when do you get back, Siri? You're going to India for how long?
For 2 weeks, so I get back actually Valentine's Day.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, no
I
purchases
won't
on
be spending any money
Valentine's
because I'll
Day.
be getting off a
Yeah, no,
plane. I'll
white
be,
women, we're not doing Valentine's Day this year
yep.
unless we buy things from a local, especially minority-owned shop. We're not spending any money. We're going to stay home on Valentine's Day, write love notes, do something. I mean, do the little kids so that they're not upset. They want to do the school stuff, that's fine, but do it before Valentine's Day. This is one small gesture we can make toward our Black sisters and minority sisters that have walked side by side and by us for our rights so many times, and then we have let them down. So this, and I'm just doing it too, so that we can take a step toward empowerment instead of sitting home watching this and saying, what can we do? What can we do?
Mhm.
So, all right, that's it. Let's stay together. Let's focus on love, and let's just stay in touch with each other. Take it a day at a time. That's all we can do. You know, Eckhart Tolle, I keep thinking of that. What his teaching is always power of now, power of now. That's in all the enlightened spiritual teachings. So try not to get too far ahead of ourselves. Don't bury our head in the sand, but also just stay with today and remember love is more powerful than anything else on the planet.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you, Siri, very much.
Yeah. Thank
And
you.
have a wonderful time in
Thank you.
Italy, or not Italy, where are you
India,
going?
India. Yeah.
India, wrong eye. In
Hmm.
India. Sorry, I was looking for my stop button. So yeah, have a wonderful time in India, and we'll definitely see you when you get back. I can't wait to hear all about it.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right, take care.
Bye-bye.